Bet on Bears fans, another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast coming your way. Pat the designer, Courtney Cronin in the building. We got to talk about some of the injury concerns that could be happening around this team. We got the news on Rome Odunze yesterday. Keenan Allen a little bit gimpy after a deep pass by Caleb Williams. Is Bear Force One going away? Is the offense going the other direction? We'll talk about all that and more in today's episode of the Chicago Bears podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. If you're watching on the YouTube side, this is by far the best dressed Chicago Bears podcast out there. Me and Courtney both fresh today. What's going on, Court?
I mean, your shirt's way cooler than this brown thing that I'm wearing. I mean, that is clean. I like that a lot.
I appreciate that. Bought these at separate times. First time matching them together.
They work perfectly. It's a symbiotic relationship you got going on there with your hat and with your shirt.
Thank you. Hey, listen, we got a Bears win, and there's a lot of people who don't know what to feel. There's excitement, but offensively, Courtney, there's confusion. It did not look like what I think anyone would have expected. I think at the worst, people were going to say you were going to get stat lines from Caleb Williams and this Bears offense very similar to what we saw from Justin Fields in that Pittsburgh offense up there. You thought that was the worst it can get. It just didn't look put together. The offense didn't look good. And then you get the news Monday that Rome Odunze, apparently while blocking on one of the Velus Jones runs, ends up dealing with or getting an MCL sprain, and that he's going to be dealing with that week to week over the next couple of weeks. That's coming off of the heels of, no pun intended, Keenan Allen dealing with a heel injury. Do we have any more updates on any of the injury news, and where do you think this puts the Bears offense right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that was left to be desired from a really bad performance offensively, and I don't know if there's any Bears fans out there that are looking at Justin Fields and what he and Pittsburgh did to, eke out that win in Atlanta. The kicker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah. Justin Fields got them into position. Caleb Williams got this team into position too, a couple times with the kicking game. They didn't turn out an offensive touchdown, but I mean, I don't think it looked that much better with Justin Fields in year 4 now and what he did down in Pittsburgh.
It was a Justin Fields game.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was exactly what you expected, but you didn't expect this from Caleb Williams. Everybody expects these rookies to struggle, especially early on in their NFL careers. You take a look at the last 5 quarterbacks drafted number 1 overall, all the way from CJ Stroud down to all the way down from Bryce Young to Baker Mayfield. Every single one of them lost, and every single one of them outside of Kyler Murray. And that was a tie in 2019 when he played that incredible fourth quarter to get this team to overtime. Yeah. Every other game was a stinker. It really was. And Caleb Williams is not the exception to that. Like, he turned in a terrible offensive performance, 3.2 yards per attempt, not being able to connect, with much efficiency with these receivers. But I think there's a lot to build on here now and we can get into that and just pare it down because it does. I know people want to freak out and be overly concerned about what it looked like, but it's week 1. It was a defense that he had never seen before. And I think that there were a lot of times where he and the receivers weren't on the same page that you expect as more games go on, those issues will be mitigated. But injury concern-wise, when Matt Eberflus was asked about DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, he didn't have much concern there. So you brought up heel. Keenan's been dealing with the heel injury. Yeah. He was a full participant in practice on Friday. That's why he played. No injury concern there. DJ got banged up in the game in that first half, and he was in the medical tent for quite a while, which, he didn't look very happy. I know he didn't talk in the locker room, but I saw him walking off the field as I was going to go talk to Tyreek Stevenson, and he looked not very happy. And understandably so. Could that be due to the lingering injury? Could it be due to, just not feeling like he turned in a very good game? Right. We'll find out this week. But the Rome Odunze injury is concerning because this is somebody who's supposed to be a major part of the Bears offense this year. Somebody who, for Caleb Williams, as Williams is trying to figure out how to do this at the pro level, Odunze is right there trying to do the same thing. Like, they're supposed to be on the same trajectory, yet now there's this unknown with the sprained MCL in his left knee when he kind of goes down awkwardly towards the Titans sideline when blocking for Velus Jones. Is that something? It's a sprain. It's what we know. It's what's been reported. It doesn't mean that it's a season-ending injury, but week to week could mean that he's not playing against the Houston Texans, that they want to try to like slow play this and not put him at more risk of injury. So I would imagine this will be one that they take up until the end of the week. Like I bet he'll be not practicing early on. Maybe he's in limited capacity as like they get through 1 or 2 more days of treatment, but certainly one to monitor. And you don't want to lose. I know that they have a loaded wide receiver room, but you don't want to lose one of your top weapons before he really has a chance to do anything outside of like the one catch that he had in his debut. I mean, nobody was happy with that. Rome Odunze wasn't happy with it either.
Though. Great catch. No, it was, doing a media fumble.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's unfortunate that it happened the way that it did, but it's so wild because I talked to him after the game. He gave no indication that he was injured, like whatsoever. Usually injured players are guys who aren't feeling their best and know they have to go get an MRI the next day. They're not going to talk, but Rome talked through, the ups and downs for the offense and the takeaways that he had there and gave no indication that left knee was, in a not so great situation.
I think the concern comes in for Bears fans here, at least me, and I think a lot of people echo this, is usually day to day in Bears terms means this guy's probably going to be out for about a week, maybe 2. And week to week, when we get that week to week distinction, it's usually these guys are going to be out for a little while here. And like you said, he didn't seem like he had any indication of injury. I don't remember him not being out there.
Because it was so late in the fourth quarter that there's a lot going on there. Where it's Tyreek Stevenson, pick 6. And then, of course, like this injury happens and he's on the field for like one more play and then he goes off. So it didn't feel like it certainly they didn't go to the medical tent. He didn't go anywhere. Like it wasn't I know that these things can feel worse after the adrenaline wears off and that you realize, oh shoot, I'm actually hurt. But yeah, it was one of those, I want to call it like a freak thing, but because, like a guy, Harold Landry was tackling Velus Jones, just happened to roll up on Rome Odunze when he's in the middle of his blocking assignment. But it didn't seem dire in the moment because it wasn't like they had to have like an injury timeout to go take care of him. Yeah, I guess the hope is, right, we get that kind of Nate Davis week to week that we got this season where he was week to week and then all of a sudden he was out there literally Monday and we're like, oh, I guess Nate Davis is back. Something to definitely keep an eye on. Is there any concern in your mind of this offense progressing with some of the things that they are dealing with injury? Well, injuries are going to happen, but I think the Keenan Allen feels like he's going to be hurt, and maybe this is something that lingers, but he probably plays through most of it. DJ, we know, what does DJ miss 3 games here in his time here? He's not a big, I'm going to miss time guy. And we don't know what they are either. Yeah. Like there was no indication given on Monday and the injury report comes out Wednesday. So we'll see if whatever DJ was dealing with that kept him in the medical tent for 10 minutes keeps him out of practice or has him practicing in limited capacity. Like there was nothing given during the game. I don't think for any Bears player, there was no questionable designation given, which is rare. Like I feel like every game there's something. But that one, because he was gone for such an extended period of time, I was surprised that there wasn't something that came out or like was, brought forth about like his situation. Yeah. Going to be very interesting to see offensively as a whole. Some takeaways from that game. Very tough. I mean, we talked about it early on. Not a lot of yardage. 147 total yards of offense. Caleb Williams did not have the debut that you would hope that he would have had. What did you see from Shane Waldron in that Bears offense that stood out to you that you think led to that day? Well, I think first and foremost, and I don't like when people blame the offensive line, like just outright without understanding like a little bit more about what we think some of the issues were. It looked like in those moments, because outside of Coleman Shelton, that entire offensive line played with Justin Fields last year or even the last 2 years. Yeah. It felt like there were times where they were expecting him to run, whereas he needed them to buy time, maybe holding onto the ball a little bit too long because he was looking to pass. And remember, he talked about that after the Bengals preseason game, that's going to be his mentality, even when he gets in the scramble mode, that he needs to, he's going to keep his eyes downfield because he's looking to pass the ball. Felt like at times like that was some of the issue that they were dealing with from that perspective. So like taking the whole blanket excuse, the offensive line didn't block well enough for him. Well, why was that? Like that to me was what that boiled down to. On top of that, you think about your 5 best players in theory, or at least like what we expect. Your 5 best players on this team, the 3 receivers, Odunze, Moore, Allen, and your top tight end from the last couple of years, Cole Kmet, and then DeAndre Swift. Like those top 5 players were on the field all of 10 snaps together. Now, when you have this, I'm not blaming Shane Waldron for this at all. I do think that it's going to take time to figure that out, like what the right mix is going to be when you're, when they're able to like get through a game and determine, okay, what is our best mix? And how many plays they ran 53 offensive plays. Like, I mean, in terms of time of possession and everything else from the first half when they kept giving the ball back because they couldn't move the ball down the field. That's going to affect the amount of offensive plays that you have. But I would like to think that 53 offensive plays, it should be more than 10 with those 5 on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
Then we get to the issue of the receivers. And the numbers, they're not good. I mean, Caleb threw for 93 yards total. 93, it's not great. So like 76 of those went to targeting his top 3 receivers. 3.3 yards per attempt. It just looked like there were a couple times, and he admitted this, that he misfired. He overthrew guys. There was the drop pass from Keenan Allen that you typically never see, the one at the goal line.
Right.
I think it's jarring because Bears fans who have been to training camp, those who have not been to training camp, but who have been like listening to our podcast, and everybody else who's been consuming Bears news the last couple of months had heard, wow, look at the connection between these 3 receivers and the new quarterback in Chicago. It looks really good. It looks really polished. So for them to come out and it look like that, that's why it's so like alarming just to the eye test of, well, what the heck happened? Was it, they won up front. We know that Jeffrey Simmons was getting in his face and chirping, and Caleb was chirping back, but like literally like the pressure was getting in Caleb's face. And the numbers just are not very good by and large. Like Caleb Williams, this is such a ballyhooed group, like supposed to be, oh my God, this is such an upgrade from what they had previously at receiver. So for him to go 12 of 26 for 93 yards when targeting all of the receivers, for 90 yards, like that's the worst attempt for a quarterback targeting a group of receivers since Roethlisberger had that, like literally on the way out of his career in Pittsburgh. Right. There's, I think, a lot of things that play into that other than, we just didn't time up the route correctly. Like we weren't on the same page. Those excuses that you're inevitably going to hear from players when they talk about this tomorrow. Some of it could have been DJ Moore being banged up. I mean, he had that great catch and then he gets hurt and who knows what he was playing through. Same thing with Keenan Allen. I mean, Keenan's like, I know that there's some people out there who want to overreact to like one game from Keenan and say, well, this was a terrible trade. Like he's old. He's this, that, he's the other thing. I would implore people to give it a little bit of time, but the 2.6 yards per target, the second worst of his career, that's not a great number, but obviously they couldn't really move the ball. So it's not like he had that many attempts to like impact the game outside of that one pass that I'm sure he's willing, he wishes he could have had back and caught that for a touchdown.
Well, I think even that though, right? Like I hope that now people understand that offense isn't just if the quarterback's good or not. It's all encompassing. Caleb Williams had some throws that were good. His receivers let him down, or he had some throws that were right there, right? He had the one throw to Keenan where he's coming across the middle. He should be able to hit him, but gets his arm knocked away last minute. Bad job. I think that was Braxton Jones that gave that one up off the left side there. Yeah, I mean, and then when the receivers won their routes, like Keenan Allen had 2 routes that he killed the guy on. And if Caleb Williams drops it in the bucket, they're touchdowns.
And that's the part that drives me nuts because everybody that's freaking out right now wants to act like Keenan Allen's washed just because they, those routes that he ran did not end up with him catching the ball or him being targeted on those plays. Like it wasn't like Caleb Williams is sailing balls past everybody, but there were times where it looked like he was throwing behind guys or he just wasn't, some of that's nerves. Like I respect Caleb for what he said. He never gets nervous. I think it's bullshit. I think that like everybody that's a human being who has a pulse is going to be nervous and a little jittery when you have defensive ends who are 3 times your size barreling down on you, and you have a nose tackle or a defensive tackle in Jeffrey Simmons, who is one of the biggest game wreckers in the NFL. You're going to be nervous.
366-pound Tavondre Sweat moving like a gazelle.
It's the speed of it's going to force you and your internal clock to go quicker. So you're not going to necessarily have the right timing for your first NFL outing. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that it's always going to look that bad. CJ Stroud didn't look good in his first 2 games. It wasn't until the 3rd game of the season that A, the Texans got a win, and B, that he looked like a competent, capable quarterback. And even then, the first quarter of the season was kind of up and down for him. That's okay if Caleb Williams follows the same trajectory. You just hope that it doesn't look – you don't want to see multiple games where it looks as bad as it did offensively against the Tennessee Titans. There's no way around that you could spin that and make it seem like, okay, well, this is just him working through early season lumps. No, you have your one game that's like that, and they've got to show major improvement in terms of a communication standpoint between the receivers and the quarterback and everything else offensively.
Yeah, and I think here – for me as a Bears fan, looking at it from the optimistic perspective, right? You can be concerned, you can feel, and listen, I'll tell you this, if they go out there and they play like that over the next 3 games, we're probably not going to win the next 3 games. Like, it's going to take a lot unless the defense has another 4 takeaway day every single game. But I am very intrigued by what I saw from Caleb as far as going through his progression. There were very few times where I looked at a route and I was like, you probably should have went the other way on this. I was very impressed by what I saw from Shane Waldron on scheming guys open. Realistically speaking, he schemed open 3 plays that if Caleb Williams drops that dime in the bucket, which accuracy is something that he has been praised for the entire time, you're talking about, at a minimum, 40-plus yard gains. We saw 3 40-plus yard shots down the field. We didn't see that last year until like week 6. Like, all of a sudden, Luke Getsy was like, no, throw the football. It's all good. Like, let it go downfield. So I think the intangibles that you're seeing, you know that they got to get on the same page. You knew this was going to be the case. Nobody expected it to be that bad, but just seeing the base of what they've put together, and you got to tweak a couple of things. I don't feel bad about the operation that went on. I feel bad about the execution that went on.
I will say one thing with the operation that I do take issue with is the lack of run support.
Yeah.
I did not, and I'm not, you can look at the numbers at the end of the game. I mean, yeah, the team had 147 yards of offense, 93 came from Caleb passing. The rest of it is from the run game. 3 yards a carry, probably not going to get it done. And in the first half alone, like, you got nothing from anybody, from DeAndre Swift, from Velus Jones, from any of these running backs. And that, like, when you have a young quarterback that you're trying not to put everything on his shoulders and you're telling him lean on his skill, it's hard to do that when your running backs are nowhere to be found. It really, honestly, Pat, was not until that, I think it was an 11-yard scramble in the 3rd quarter from Caleb, like, that the run game actually got taken seriously from the Tennessee Titans. And yeah, like, they didn't view it as a threat because they shut it down in the first half, but you had to find some sort of workaround to that was more than just like throw Velus in here, use DJ on, a reverse or end around, whatever it was. That to me was the biggest hole in this game plan, was there was not enough run support. And they try, if you go back and watch it and you're saying your takeaway is, hey, they made them one-dimensional, I guess you can view it that way. But to me, there were plenty more opportunities to run the ball that they just did not take advantage of.
I think, and I did. When I rewatched the tape, when I'm looking at the all-22, there's a monster in the middle.
Yeah, and I mean, that's going to always make it tough, especially when there runs on 3rd and 1 when you're going directly at him.
Yeah. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, I understand why you weren't able to get it up the middle. But the problem that I had was, where are those short passes that you talk about as extended runs? Where are those now he did try the screen passes, but
a tight end screen on
a tight end screen pass? Come on, Courtney.
On 3rd and 29.
That was crazy. That was crazy. Just say we don't. I get it. And J-Mac says this all the time. There is no play call
Correct.
for 3rd and 15 plus. There's no play call in any playbook for that long.
I guess it was literally just get yourself in better position, get your special teams unit in better position for the punt.
But just take a knee. Or if you go put Gerald Everett out there, just take a knee. That's basically what you had going on there. The one concern that I do have, and I'll be up there Thursday, as long as another tooth doesn't decide to like explode on me. I'll be up there Thursday, and I'll be very excited to talk with Shane Waldron, because one of the things that is a conundrum to me is, and I get it, not a lot of time on the field. Maybe you didn't get the package in that you wanted to get in, or it just wasn't working. Cole Kmet, 48% of the snaps that's mind-boggling to me. He is our number one tight end option. He's that safety blanket that's out there, and he's been that guy at practice.
Yeah, but maybe this is telling you something. Look, I said that earlier, like that arguably your 5 best players on the field altogether for 10 snaps, probably you want to up that number. What if we're seeing a transition here? Cole Kmet had a very quiet preseason outside of the Buffalo game.
Yeah.
Where Caleb gets out on play action, Cole just chugs downfield and has that 26-yard reception. What if they're going to use the move tight end in this offense in a way that like surpasses what Cole Kmet's role is going to be? If he goes back to being more of a traditional tight end where he's not relied on in the passing game nearly as much as he was for the last 2 years under Luke Getsy, that let him get to a career best year last year. What if this is like the, kind of getting a little taste of what his role is going to become? Like I don't gloss over that one at all. It's just like, oh, that could just be like a week 1 blunder, like maybe, like an afterthought in the playbook or in the game plan. Just keep an eye on it. Just see, because the snap counts will never lie to you based on a player's usage. That if Gerald Everett is getting the majority of the snaps in the tight end position and being called on for running routes and going out on routes and being like, a receiving option for Caleb Williams, that might tell you how they view Cole Kmet and what they want his role to become in this new offense.
It absolutely could, 110%. And I said this before the season started. I still stand by this. When you look around that room of the weaponry that you have, somebody's got to take an L.
Someone's not going to get the yards there.
Somebody's not going to get the yards that they got last season, right? And so, like, to me, Cole Kmet is the guy who maybe he finishes out this season a 450, 500-yard guy, but he's so massive. Shane Waldron is definitely smart enough to go, we got to put this guy in when we get in our red zone package. You didn't spend a ton of time in the red zone. So I think maybe that's where we see more of Cole Kmet. I've said this season I expect him, give me 450, 500 yards, but I think he could be a double-digit touchdown guy because they'll use him down low and just go throw it to the big dude.
Well, I mean, that's what his role had been for Justin Fields. And I think that Bears fans are used to that and not, we were given this facade last year that the role that at least Gerald Everett is coming in here and showing he's capable of is what we thought the Bears were going to get with Robert Tonyan last year, and it wasn't. Yeah. So it felt like there was like one tight end that they use, and that's it. That's not the case anymore. You have 2 that are very capable and one who is more of that hybrid receiver in Gerald Everett that I do think will be playing a bigger role than Cole Kmet in the passing game this season. I felt that for a while. I know we've talked about that. Like, I just felt like training camp was kind of indicative of what Cole Kmet is, this version of him in this scheme where Shane Waldron sees his best fit. And I don't think that that's the same that it was the last 2 years.
Yeah, it could be a very drastically different situation for Cole Kmet. This offense as a whole has a lot to get together before they go down to Texas before they go down to Houston, because you play a game like that, you will come up on the losing end. And I think that here's the one thing that I will say, though. Offensively, you got to do more. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to do the most in the world, and I think that you got that confirmed by how that defense played on Sunday.
And that's every luxury. Like, most quarterbacks in Caleb's position don't have that. That's why he's the first one since 2002, first number 1 overall QB to win a game in his first start. And some people are going to look at that. David Carr, yeah.
David Carr, David Carr.
And it's just, that's why it's such an anomaly. And people like look at that and say, well, Caleb didn't do anything to win that game. No, he didn't, but he has a really good defense, and he has a good special teams unit that was opportunistic with the block punt, with the 3 field goals from Cairo Santos. Like, it's not how you want to win every game. Yeah. And certainly no one was expecting it to look that bad offensively. I think we were all, if you look at it rationally, or you're thinking about it rationally, expected there to be some lumps from Caleb Williams, the 19-yard sack that he took. You cannot take that, because outside of that, even though I think that, the offense went 3 and out early on, and then they had another 3 and out, like, it felt like at least they were staying alive in the first quarter. And then that play happened. It felt like a snowball effect of like, we're behind the chains, then of course, like later on the pre-snap penalties, a couple of like, the false start, the delay of game, like some of those things just like really like, are we going backwards, literally and figuratively? but it wasn't supposed to look as bad as it did. And the reason I don't think people are overreacting even more to this is because you see that defense, you see how those momentum plays snowballed into what they were, that like Jalen Johnson should have had 2 interceptions. Tyreek Stevenson should have had 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
That's what you know about this defense. So if that's a 4 interception day, then holy moly, this team will be just fine leaning on its defense. But they're not. You don't go out and draft a quarterback number 1 overall and then the defense be the spotlight. That's just never going to be the way that it is with the NFL and the way that the way that quarterbacks dominate storylines and the way that teams are constructed to win in 2024. But if that ends up being the case for the Bears as they try to sort this thing out the first month or 2 of the season, so be it, as long as they can lean on that defense on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, right? For every weapon that Houston has, and there's a ton of them down there, right? You go Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, you go Tank Dell, you got add Joe Mixon in there. For every weapon they have, though, of course, C.J. Stroud, the biggest weapon. You go, I got Montez Sweat. Seems like, I don't know if he's going to do it again, but what a heck of a pickup for Darrell Taylor here.
Yeah.
It seems like I got T.J. Edwards. I got Tremaine Edmonds. Both of those guys having impactful games. I've got Jaquan Brisker. I've got Tyreek Stevenson, who seems like he stayed on the right path with that pick 6 to seal the game, right? For every piece you give Houston, it almost feels 2005, 2006-ish. I know that's high praise, but where you said, yeah, you got all that stuff, but you got to figure out how to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
And coming out of week 1, that's a feeling I didn't expect defense. I thought the defense would play well, but I think we got more questions answered defensively than we expected.
And the unit's been together for 3 years. Shouldn't it look like this? Like, would we be surprised if? I think you'd be more surprised if the defense looked not as good versus like the offense looking like it's a work in progress. I think there'd be a lot of like alarm bells sounding right now about, oh no, what happened to that defense that was talking about being a top 5 unit this season? Like, it didn't look like it. Like, you'd be more concerned about a group that's been together by and large for 3 seasons if they didn't look the way that they did versus the offense with a new coordinator and a bunch of new players and a new quarterback looking like, oh, this is going to take some time for this group to get together.
I think the surprise is the amount of pressure the Bears were able to get with their defensive line. The surprise for me is not Jalen Johnson. It's not Jalen Johnson had a Jalen Johnson game. Phenomenal game. I mean, listen, literally the best DB per PFF that you could have had that day. He allowed 1 catch for -2 yards. He had an interception. He had a forced incompletion. He allowed a passer rating of 2.8. He literally was the best defensive back in the NFL on Sunday. The surprise for me, though, was Andrew Billings, how much time he spent in the backfield. Darrell Taylor, seeing Daniel Hardy. All of a sudden, we had kind of like stopped talking about Daniel Hardy because of Austin Booker. Lights come on. Daniel Hardy's like, no, I'm still in the mix. I'm still getting pressure. Montez Sweat, of course, doing what he's doing. Javon Dexter answering, do we have a 3 technique? I think your surprises come more from what felt like stability on that defensive line than that DB unit.
Because that was the biggest question. Like, like how are they going to look coming into this season, knowing that they had tried to upgrade before they went out and traded for Darrell Taylor, and they weren't able to. So it left the question of, okay, well, if they don't look great for the first half of the season, are they going to trade for somebody? Right now, the answer would be, I think they can get by with this group because they did generate pressure with their 4. And that's a good feeling. But like, think about how opportunistic they were on the play that ended up sealing the game. That's a 3rd down blitz, 3rd and 7 from the 45-ish for Tennessee. I mean, most quarterbacks probably aren't trying to flip the ball to the sideline the way that Will Levis did, but how aggressive Matt Eberflus was in being able to strike in that moment with the blitz. And then, Tyreek Stevenson, where he was on that side of the field, I think it was 83 that Will Levis, I don't even know if he saw him. He just threw it there and it looked like it was sort of in his vicinity. But like, that's play calling. That's a defensive coordinator, head coach who knew when to try to strike with like his extra defenders, to bring blitz, to come in a situation that ended up being advantageous for the Bears that you might not have seen in the last couple of years. Like, it did feel when it was a different defensive coordinator here that they were, kind of stuck in the ways of the old NFL where it was come hell or high water, we're getting pressure with our 4 or we're not. Eberflus has definitely become so much more willing to dial up blitzes and bring in his corners, bring in his linebackers, and find ways to get extra pressure on quarterbacks if it's so you're not having to do it consistently, like 95% of the time with your defensive line.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's why you can go into Houston a little more comfortable. If there's any solace for Will Levis after throwing that whatever that flip pass was that Tyreek ends up picking off, is I remember Josh Allen in, I want to say it was the first play, the AFC wildcard game versus Houston, doing the exact same thing at the end of the game. Maybe you become Josh Allen. Maybe it works out for you. It was like he was driving down last play. He tried to lateral a pass out of nowhere. And, at the end of the day, he became Josh Allen and it worked out. So maybe you become Josh Allen. Stop with the mayonnaise, dog. I don't know what's going on with Will Levis. And then he's got I don't know if you saw this, but he's like, the Bears didn't win that game. We lost it. So you didn't cross the 50. In the second half.
And his head coach kind of gave him an indictment when he said, well, if we would have just punted on 1st and 10 in the second half, we would have won the game. That's a big shot at your quarterback.
Love it. I love it, man. Before we get up out of here, Courtney, we're looking at one position that most people have talked about. And you said it's kind of just the blanket blame position. But there's one spot on that line. Listen, Coleman Shelton, it wasn't pretty. But it's not the worst I've seen, and there was effort there. The right guard position was effortless on Sunday, and we've watched Ryan Poles send guys away for not showing effort. We saw that with Chase Claypool last season. I wonder if we're going to see Nate Davis have to apologize to the group for the effort we saw on Sunday, because let's be 100% honest. Like the 29-yard sack, Nate Davis is the reason for it. Yes, Caleb Williams probably needs to vacate the pocket, get out of there with the ball. But your offensive coordinator calls a boot. You don't even touch a guy at any point in there. The one credit I'll give to Coleman Shelton on the I think it was the first sack that was allowed with the delayed blitz was Coleman Shelton was trying to hit somebody. He just picked the wrong guy. Yeah, Nate Davis isn't even trying to hit people.
Well, I mean, the rotation, none of us knew that this was where they were going. They said all along that they were planning to use both guards or both offensive linemen at right guard. You don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the fact that you have an open competition allegedly at right guard shows you that Nate Davis is not your answer. And he probably usually doesn't work out to where you get to keep your job after they've reopened or are starting a new competition at right guard. Because there really wasn't a right guard competition. There was a center competition.
Yeah.
That just so happened to because Nate was injured, push him out, and those two, Shelton and then Ryan Bates, were in the lineup for a while. There's no center competition right now. They can't have two competitions open. That's just not going to work, or two jobs open. So you sooner rather than later, they have to figure out, is it Nate Davis or is it Ryan Bates? Because you can't just go along with this thing and be all right, well, we just have, two right guards here. It's kind of like the quarterback thing. You have two right guards, you have one that's probably a starter and one that should be your backup, right? Yeah. That's eventually what they're going to have to do in terms of making just going forward with them, be all right, it's either Nate Davis or it's Ryan Bates. But I feel at this point, if they've reopened that and if there are questions about effort and if it just doesn't look good when he's in there, then Nate Davis could be finding his way to a backup role sooner rather than later, so long as they can get their starting five solidified.
Is that something that could be a this week change? Or is this something that probably plays down the road?
Well, the way that Eberflus talked about it made it sound like, at least publicly, they didn't have, he doesn't be okay, by week 2, no, we have to figure it out before this game against the Houston Texans. They don't want to be rotating guys. Yeah. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody wants that because it means that you lack stability at a position.
100%.
So the sooner they can get it figured out, the better for them. However, Ryan Bates is working his way back in. He this is his first game that he played. He didn't play much in the preseason at all. I don't think he played in the preseason at all because he didn't play in that first game, and then he was out for Buffalo. So
he didn't get him
some time to get up to speed too. But you'd have to think at least by week 3 that they'll make it. You can't go on with this more than 1 or 2 weeks, and you lack stability up front, and that's a big problem.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, the rotation we saw for a while in there was, right, it was Coleman Shelton. It was Matt Pryor for most of the preseason. Actually, for all of the preseason. Did Nate get out there that last game? Maybe Nate got out there the last game.
Well, I don't know if he was in the last game. I don't think the offensive line – no, the offensive line didn't play the last game in Kansas City, but he was at least back like with the starting unit in the last couple weeks
in practice and in training camp. Yeah, I don't know. It's one where – I get a lack of talent. I almost get Coleman Shelton. It sounds bad. Like Nate Davis was so bad. I understand why Coleman Shelton was so bad. I get a lack of talent. Coleman Shelton's a guy who he's an undersized center. LA was willing to let him go. There's probably a reason. The showing that Nate Davis saw looked exactly like what we saw when he was over on the battle ropes. It looked exactly like what we saw when he was going through the motions at training camp. It looks like the answers are on the wall with him.
Yeah.
And because he's making $10 million, the Bears are hesitant to actually just cash that check of we need to move on from this guy.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think it would be a situation like you're probably not trading him. You're not cutting him. But how is he going to handle if he has to go into a backup role?
Yeah.
At least you're not trading him anytime now. You'd be maybe looking at the deadline if it devolves to that. But this is. Nobody has competitions in season if they can avoid it. This is not the outcome that the Bears want. So they've got to figure it out and mitigate it as fast as they can to be able to give Caleb Williams the right starting five in front of him that he can move forward with.
It's so crazy, Courtney. This sounds so familiar. I feel like we keep hearing this. Hey, listen, I love Ryan Poles, love everything he's done. Got to figure Velus Jones. I don't know what that's going on. He's got pictures on somebody.
Yeah, I don't think he's your kick returner anymore.
That's okay.
I mean, that should be a very minimum thing. It's too much of a liability. How many more chances are you going to give the guy? I just don't think. And I mean, DeAndre Carter, for what it's worth, looks good on both.
Yeah. Here's my problem.
66-yard return. That's pretty good.
Here's my problem with that then. If he's not your kick returner, that means that you're fighting to keep your fifth best running back and your fifth best wide receiver on the roster.
Trying to justify it. You have to, that's what it is, though. You're giving a guy who's in his third year every last opportunity. Well, he burns you on one when he muffs the kickoff and then kicks it 10 or 20 yards. That's not – how much more of that do you have to see in order to be all right, we're done. We've tried. We've given this guy every opportunity. Let's move on.
I'd put Velus on Nate Davis's back, put them both in a boat, and just push him out into Lake Michigan, and wherever it stops, that's where you sign at next. Can you tell I'm sick of it? Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love. Appreciate Courtney coming on the show. We'll be back tomorrow breaking down more Bears football with Jason McKee in the building as always. Make sure that you guys hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. As always, man, it's your boy Pat the Designer. Back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear down, one love, and Barstool, Dan Bernstein. That's going to be interesting.